Full slate of college football games tomorrow, and on today's show, I really want to dive into why all of the hyped up quarterbacks are not living up to it this season. Let's talk about it on today's Verts show. I'm Harrison Graham. Before we dive in here, if you want more college football and NFL draft related videos, prove it to me by subscribing. We're NFL heavy, obviously working in 1-2 college football episodes a week. We did do a mock draft, which got some good feedback. So if you want more college football analysis, NFL draft stuff, because today is kind of a combination of both, as a lot of these quarterbacks are draft eligible, then hit that subscribe button and prove it to me that that's the content you're looking for. All right. To me, these were the 6 most hyped quarterbacks heading into this college football season. Obviously, Arch Manning out of Texas, Cade Klubnik at Clemson, South Carolina's Lenor Sers, DJ Lagway at Florida, Drew Allar at Penn State, Garrett Nusmire at LSU. Of note, DJ Lagway is not draft eligible while the other 5 are, so did want to mention that. I would say through week 3 of the college football season, it's pretty safe to say none of these guys have lived up to expectations. Now, we're still in September. There's a long way to go. Things can certainly change. But right now, that's kind of how it is. And so I want to go through each of these guys and just kind of break down how they've looked so far and just kind of examine where it goes from here. And we got to start with Arch because, listen, I did a couple videos this offseason about it. I just destroyed Paul Feinbaum when he said he's the greatest thing we've seen since Tim Tebow, despite literally only playing in like 4 games. And he actually has looked worse this year than he ever did, even in his 2 starts last year. He's barely completing 55% of his passes. His accuracy is all over the place. The arm strength has not popped. The decision-making's been bad. He's been fine as a runner, but even probably a little less than expected there in 3 games. Like, let's be real. If you take the name out of it and who he is and what his background is, he's a Manning, all that stuff. If you're just looking at the film and the evaluation of Arch Manning in 2025, the skill set, the physical attributes, all of it, to me, I see an undraftable player. Now, it's early. He still has a lot of eligibility left. Technically, he has 2 more years after this year. The chatter for a while has been he probably wouldn't go pro after this year anyway. I think unless something drastically changed, that's definitely going to be the case. He is not even close to ready. But even all the skills that he does have, it's not really popping. Like, he's a good athlete, but is he going to be a dynamic dual threat in the NFL? Probably not. His arm strength feels average to me. His release needs a lot of work, a lot of mechanical work. The accuracy has been bad. The decision-making has been bad. Like, I don't see a draftable player. If his name was Timothy Johnson, is this a guy you would draft? I don't think so. So I think Arch has a long way to go. It's been so bad, guys. A couple more clunkers, there would be talk of, do you bench him in Austin? So I'm rooting for him. Seems like a great kid and all that stuff. But, man, I don't think it could have gone much worse up to this point. He missed 9 straight throws against UTEP last week. UTEP. I mean, that's not great, guys. Will Arch Manning figure it out? Type Y for yes, type in for no. I mean, I think he'll improve, but again, to become like this big-time college player and NFL draft prospect, there's a big gap that he needs to close in order to do just that. Okay, Cade Klubnik at Clemson. Senior, 4th-year starter. Through 3 games, lowest completion percentage of his career. The Tigers are 1-2. The game they did win was against Troy, and they were down 16-3 at halftime. I've never really seen it with Klubnik, if I'm being honest with you. Like, he's 6'1", 6'2", kind of has a noodle arm. He's pretty thin. Like, I don't love just the physical tools that he has, and especially in big games against quality opponents, I haven't seen him play well. He played pretty good in that playoff game against Texas last year, and everybody was like, okay, he's arrived, even though they still lost by 2 touchdowns. And even I was like, okay, like, I'm not a big Klubnik guy, but if he can build off that, he's regressed. he's regressed from a point of not being, to me, a high-level NFL prospect. And, all these mock drafts in the offseason have him going top 5 and all that stuff. And I just haven't seen it. I mean, I think his accuracy has always been hit and miss. He tends to sail the ball. Sometimes he skips the ball. I don't love his frame. I think he's a good college athlete, but kind of like Arch, not even as athletic as Arch. Like, I don't view him as a major mobile threat in the NFL. Like, he can move, but I don't know if you're designing zone read with him. To me, he's a mid-late round quarterback in terms of his skill set. If you're going to be a little thinner, a little wiry like that, you better be supremely accurate. He's not. Does he have a live arm? He doesn't. Does he make great decisions? He's a fine decision maker. I've never really saw it. I've never understood the hype with him. Like, he's what I would call a good college quarterback and like a day 3 NFL guy, that probably will fit well in a locker room and can be a long-term backup, but I don't see starting traits in the NFL. Now, a guy who does have big-time traits is Lenor Sers at South Carolina. That's why in my way too early mock back in the summer, I had him going number 1 because the physical attributes just pop. He's 6'3", 245, good runner, can shed pass rushers in the pocket, big arm, but he's extremely raw. And I would say he still looks extremely raw. I don't see him having taken that jump from last year to this year. Now, he has another year of eligibility. Also, he did leave last week with a concussion. The latest there is that there's some optimism he'll play this week against Mizzou, which would be huge for South Carolina because they got blasted by Vanderbilt, and when he went down, that pretty much ended the game. The early returns, though, to me is that this looks like a guy who probably could use another year of college football. And that in the NIL era, if I'm an agent repping one of these guys, that would be my advice. Unless you're just playing at a very, very high level, the data tells us the more starts, the more experience you get, the better chance you have to succeed in the NFL. If he plays all year long, okay, 2-year starter, that's a decent amount of experience. Come back, get that third year, develop. You're going to make money with NIL. So I look at a guy like Lenor Sers. The traits are there, but he just needs to play some more ball. So far this year, it's been pretty up and down, if we're being completely honest. Okay, today's show is brought to you by Prize Picks. You and I make decisions every day, but being right on Prize Picks can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement this season on Prize Picks, where it's good to be right. It's great to have football season here because I'm firing off Prize Picks lineup every week. Now you can play other sports as well. You can cross over sports in your lineups. 2 to 6 player lineups. You just pick more or less on stat projections. If you get your lineup right, you can win up to 2,000 times your money. That's right, $10 can turn into $20,000. Prize Picks also invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. A little 3-player college football lineup for you guys. Jackson Arnold, one of the better running quarterbacks in college football, going up against a tough Oklahoma defense. Revenge game for him, though. I like the more on his rushing yards. I love John Mateer to throw at least one touchdown pass. Say I take the more on half a touchdown pass. That's a Goblin pick, and then which is easier to hit, lower payout but easier to hit. And then Carson Beck, less on his passing yards against Florida. Florida's defense actually played well against Garrett Nusmire. 272.5 is a big number. $20 to win 75 on that 3-player entry. One lineup of many examples that you could do. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use our code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That is code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. Okay, DJ Lagway, the one quarterback in this group that is not draft eligible. So, regardless of how this year goes, he's got a long, kind of runway here to figure things out. But man, he got rattled against LSU. 5 interceptions. I think in the first 2 games he actually played pretty well, but first real high-profile game, they lost to South Florida too. But high-profile game against LSU, the decision-making just completely reckless. It's just so bad from Lagway. Now, I love his upside. I've seen him play at a high level already as a young collegiate player. Big arm, big physical athlete who can run. I'm still buying Lagway stock, but in terms of the hype coming into this season, not only for him and for Florida, 1-2 start, really bad against LSU, did not play great against South Florida either. So yeah, just not an ideal situation. And his head coach could be fired soon, and Billy Napier. So you wonder if he's a candidate to enter the transfer portal for his junior season when he would be draft eligible. So that's something to watch over the next couple months. Okay, Drew Allar. Remember last year, he played well at the end of the season, early in the playoff, a lot of buzz. Drew Allar could go pro, could be the number 1 overall pick. He went back to school, wanted another year of development. I haven't seen him take a jump. Penn State has played nobody, and he's been just pretty pedestrian. Now, he's made a couple throw that pop, and, he's a big physical kid with a strong arm. He's got 1 or 2 throws a game where you're just like, wow, but I've never liked his decision-making. I've never thought he was that accurate, and in big games in particular, he's almost always under-delivered. Almost always. And so far, he's played Nevada, Florida International, Villanova. Well, bye week this week before playing the Oregon Ducks next week. So okay, you want me to kind of start buying into the Drew Allar hype and a guy that I would consider using a first pick on? Go out, play Dante Moore, and go beat the Oregon Ducks at home. It's a cross-country flight for Oregon. If you're Penn State, national title expectations, that's a game you need to win. So let's see if Allar can deliver in that type of environment, in that type of moment, because typically in these big top 10, top 15 matchup games, he is underperformed, and we'll see how he does in this one. Who you got? Oregon, Penn State, type ORE for the Ducks, PSU for the Nittany Lions. Huge game early on in the college football season and next week. All right, Garrett Nusmeier, who's, I would say out of this group has probably been the best, even though it's been underwhelming at times. However, they have had a tougher schedule. I know Clemson's 1-2, but that's still like a real tough week 1 opponent. Good defense there. Also Florida, SEC opponent. So 2 of the first 3 games against Power 4 competition. I'd say it's been up and down. I haven't seen really a jump from last year. Now, I've said this about Nuss. I think he's a high floor QB prospect. I think he could be at least like a really, really good NFL backup and, kind of a serviceable starter. I don't know if I see a guy who could be big time in the NFL. For one, he has no mobility. He's kind of like a Jared Goff type. So if you can't move, you have to be just dominant, pre-snap, line of scrimmage, the mental game, all that stuff. I think he's good in those areas, but I still think there's a long way to go when it comes to Nussmeier. If I had to pick out of this group, who would I draft? I would take Nussmeier, but he feels like a day 2 pick to me historically. Now with the QB tax, would you take a swing in the first round? Sure, but again, I don't see a high ceiling there. I see a medium type of ceiling. I don't even know the best case scenario. I've heard the Burrow comps because of LSU. I'm like, I don't. Burrow can move better. He's more accurate. I don't know. I don't see that. I think his absolute ceiling is he becomes the 15th best quarterback in the NFL. So are you taking that in the top 10, top 5 picks? I mean, we'll see how he plays the rest of the year, and that's worth pointing out because, again, we are in September. It is early, but based on what I've seen, I wouldn't take any of these guys high in the draft based on the tape and just the overall play and production here in 2025. So eager to see how this group plays the rest of the season. My personal favorite quarterbacks I've watched this year, John Mateer has been fun at Oklahoma. He still has a lot of development in terms of being a pocket passer, but he can really move. He can throw on the run. Carson Beck has impressed me. It was not good at Georgia last year, but getting him in Miami's offense with Shannon Dawson, they're asking him to do a lot at the line of scrimmage too. I've been impressed. He's been accurate. Has put up big numbers so far. Dante Moore at Oregon. Haven't really played anyone, so 5-star from a few years ago. But again, that Penn State game coming up. Excited to see who plays better out of him and Drew Allar. Luke Altmaier is kind of a high floor, low ceiling prospect, but he's played a lot of ball. He kind of reminds me of a Brock Purdy type where when his career is over, he's just going to have put up a lot of numbers. He's accurate. He's a good decision maker. Probably projects more of like a middle, late round guy, but someone you get into your building in the right situation, I think can play pretty well. Then Bo Pribula, who was the backup to Drew Allar, was going to take over as the starter if Allar went pro at Penn State. When he announced he came back, Pribula entered the transfer portal. He has absolutely outplayed Drew Allar this year. 3 games, but still, keep an eye on the Missouri quarterback. I like what I've seen from him up to this point in his young career. All right, who is the best quarterback in college football right now? If you had to pick one guy, I think if I'm picking one guy to win a game at this exact moment, I'd probably pick John Mateer. I think he's been the most impressive guy so far this season. So we'll see how that goes. Obviously, the OU's got a bunch of big games coming up. Things could certainly shift. But, yeah, he's impressed me quite a bit. Not sure where he'd go in the draft if there was a draft today, but fun, creative player. If you get him in a certain system, I think he could have success. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of For Verts. Enjoy your college football Saturday tomorrow. My name is Harrison Graham. We'll see you guys soon.